And welcome to another episode of the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast. I'm Taylor Phillips, along with Ed Smith. How you doing, Ed?
Doing well, doing as best I can. Been dealing with some personal stuff since last weekend, but holding on strong. And I'm looking forward to tonight's episode.
Yep, got three topics to talk about to fill up our 30 minutes here, including Casey Mize, the Red Wings catching up, and a recap of Michigan State at Michigan with the very emotional stuff going on involving whatever happened last week. Um, but but let's get to it right about now. The Detroit Tigers have placed starting pitcher Casey Mize on the 60-day injured list, back on the 60-day injured list, in order to make room for Tyler Wolfen, a left-handed pitcher. Um, I don't know what it was for, honestly, but Casey Mize. Just one question to ask though: Could could Casey Mize be done with baseball? That's
I would say that's premature to say that right now. Granted, his future does not look as bright as it once was, as once we all thought it once was when he was drafted number one overall in 2018. Um, I can and will say that there were some scouts and reporters around the time. I'm not going to name names at the moment because it will be too redundant, but there it is out there. The research is out there of how showing that there were concerns of how potential durability and injury long term issues may pop up throughout the course of his career. That was noted. Now, granted, if you're saying, well, who the hell else could the Tigers could have picked at that spot, it still remains to be seen because it's not a guarantee that it may have been a strong draft to begin with, but still, it's unfortunate because he heralded so much hype, so much attention early on, and you saw some glimmers of what he could be as a piece of this rotation or just a piece of this franchise period. But it just hasn't borne fruit. Now you're coming out the fact that he's recovering from the Tommy John surgery that he had that knocked him out last year, and now he had also revealed before this latest news um, that he was also had a underwent back surgery just recently. So this is something that we did not know about. The media obviously didn't know about. I doubt that some of its teammates even knew about it as well. So that is a bad job on, I would say, the Tigers PR team and or the medical team in terms of handling the situation, handling the information, and if quite possible, how they handle uh, Mize's medical health to begin with. But still, that's neither here nor there. What matters is he seen as a bust? Is it seen as a wasted pick? Um, it's easy to say, this is just another bad example of why Al Avila was a horrible general manager. But let's not forget, this move was getting its praise, getting its kudos at the time. You're thinking, okay, we see what Al Avila is trying to do. Granted, he is no longer here, but that's because of other reasons besides him drafting
that's the
certain players in
frustrating
certain
part.
spots. Exactly. But Alavila earned his firing. There's no doubt about it. When it comes to Casey Mize, I think it's just a matter of you may have to give this more time. Even if it turns out that it doesn't work out here, there is always a chance that he may be a workable piece somewhere else. I don't know what's going to happen or if and when we'll cross that bridge, but I'd say it's too soon, too early to try and give up on Casey Mize right now, and for sure to label him as a bust this early, I think just that's just unfair to him personally. You got to let time pass first.
Right. What the real my real question is, if he keeps getting injured like this, could he consider retiring from baseball?
Well, that's up to Casey that's up to Casey Mize, and it's
It
only
is,
up for
yes,
him to
it
decide.
is.
It's up to him as whether or not he wants to go through it. Some are wired differently on a mental state more than others. Some will say, "Yeah, it's worth it. I'm willing to go through that type of pain." Others are saying, "No, I have my own threshold. I know my limits." I think that the famous example to note would be Andrew Luck, because he wasn't even 30 yet, and he decided, "Nope, I'm done with this," and it was for good reason too. Whereas for Casey Mize, it's just to me a different situation and different scenario. But um, it's not the end of the road. It's not the end of the world for him. I would say a famous example of a draft pick prospect pitcher who had injury issues early on, but still managed to go on and have a productive career would be R.A. Dickey. So if you could say if he follows that type of career path, yeah, it'll be a journey, it'll be a process, it'll be a wait for him. But I think at the end of the day, it'll be worth it.
All right, well, at least I'm willing to give him Mize more time as well. So, yeah, he's only young. I don't think he should retire. I don't think he should retire just because he gets injured so many times. Just find different ways to stay healthy and such. But I still find I still find no reason. Well, almost no reason or whatever to for the Tigers to place Casey Mize back on the 60-day injured list. But fine, I'll whatever it is, whatever happens happens. So whatever they do is considered. So that's the truth that's out there. So it is. So let's just move on. The Red Wings, they had won 5 straight. They swept the Western Canada trip after beating Calgary and Vancouver at home before losing to Seattle. But the Red Wings, they caught up to 60 points, just 3 points back of that second Eastern Conference wildcard spot. There were apologies. There are still 3 teams ahead of them, trailing the Pittsburgh Penguins with 60 at 27, 19, and 9 and 63 points. The Red Wings right now, as shown on the banner, 26, 21, and 8 with 60 points. 6th place in the NHL Eastern Conference wildcard standings. Ahead of them are the Buffalo Sabres, 28, 22, and 4 with 60 points. The Washington Capitals, who the Red Wings play tomorrow, 28, 24, and 6 with 62 points. The New York Islanders, tied with the Pittsburgh Penguins in points with 63, but the Isles are 28, 24, and 7. The Pens, as I mentioned before, 27, 19, and 9. Less regulation losses and more overtime losses, slightly. And then you got the first wild card spot, the Florida Panthers, 29, 25, and 6. 64 points. But the Red Wings, they should not look back. You got the Ottawa Senators still in the hunt at 27, 25, and 4 with 58 points. The Philadelphia Flyers, although they've been struggling in Western Canada, especially as of late, 23, 25, and 10 with 56 points. And then rounding out the bottom, probably out of the race, pretty much out of the race now, Montreal, the Canadiens, 23, 29, and 4 with 50 points. The Blue Jackets completely out of it. They're terrible. 18, 34, and 5 with 41. They're the ones contending for Connor Bedard in the NHL draft lottery. Mm-hmm. So, but if you're a Red Wings fan anywhere, right now, if you're following this, you should forget the lottery. Don't even care. You're ready for playoff contention. If you're aware since you're aware that your team is catching back up in the standings all of a sudden, just 3 points away from a playoff berth,
or at least a wild card spot. But I see what your point. This team, listen, they've been on absolute fire as of late. They've won 8 of their last 11 games. This goes back to even before the All-Star break, and they really have used that momentum from using that as a real launching pad to where they wanted to be. This was the progress that we wanted to see come to fruition now for quite some time for what that next step that they were trying to take for this season. Granted, it is the first season under a new head coach, so the expectations probably would have been a little bit lower than some would hope for it to be. But I would still say with the talent that you have, the roster that you have, and knowing that you may not be in say the tougher conference, so to speak. I think a chance at a second wild card spot was more than doable. Now the way that they've been playing, at the first half of the season, the majority of it was very alarming, very cause for concerning. Bad defense, bad goaltending. The power play unit was atrocious. But as of late, we'll see more production from the offense, much better goaltending, better capitalization of penalties and penalty killing situations. They've won 8 out of 11, like I mentioned before, and at the forefront of that has been their captain, Dylan Larkin. Say what you want about, do you think he deserves this amount of money, that amount of money? There's no denying his impact and his importance to this team. And throughout this, 12 game stretch or whatever, he's got 15 points, with 7 of those coming on goals. So he's balancing out his playmaking ability and skill tremendously. You would argue if it wasn't for the fact that uh, some of his key teammates, had to deal with injuries, or in the case of Lewis Raymond, regression, that his point total will be up much higher than what it is right now. So Dylan Larkin, in my opinion, I think he's starting to follow or do a suggestion, or the path that he's choosing is something that I had suggested weeks ago, of where if you want to show and prove to Steve Eisenman that you want that payday, you want close to that $9 million average annual salary as much as possible, go out there and show it. Show it on the ice. Score some goals. Lead your team. Get them to this potential playoff spot. See what you can do if and when you get to the playoffs. That would convince, or at least put the court of public pressure on your side. So that's one aspect of looking at it. Another aspect of what I mentioned with the good goaltending, Ville Husso, when it's clear that he's established himself as the number one goaltender option for the Wings moving forward. You got Nedeljkovic getting sent down, being put on waivers, whereas as of late, Husso has been on fire. He's been averaging 1.32 goals against. His save percentage is over 900, far better cry than what we saw from earlier this season, and of course what we've seen from Nedeljkovic as well. Speaking of Nedeljkovic, it's not too much of a crazy thing to say or suggest that, hey, he could be a potential trade piece. I would say the same thing about Tyler Bertuzzi as well. I remember seeing a report on Winging It in Motown of how some teams might have been interested in him. Another name to potentially look at, which is quite interesting to note because he has been brought back now after clearing waivers, and he's been a healthy scratch now a couple of times. But Jakub Vrana is back with the team, so it's not a guarantee that he was brought up to play. It could have been a potential situation where he's being brought up for potential trade value. So let's not forget, trade deadline. It's March 3rd. It's a little over a week away. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see more moves or another move or so being done by Eisman and company before that deadline or on the day itself. Because at this point, like you mentioned, Taylor, that second playoff spot is in what, 2-3 points within reach.
Three.
Why not try?
Like I said,
3 points. Why not try to make a move? Be buyers this time around. See what it can get you.
this is the buyer's market already. It is. So we will keep an eye on this. We will keep an eye on out for any trade deadline news involving our Detroit Red Wings. So, man, hopefully Larkin stays and gets an extension with the Wings. Hopefully, because he is by far the team point leader in goals and assists.
He's the most important and most valuable player by a country mile.
That's why he's the captain, because of the stats. So, yes, this episode will be short and sweet. Michigan transitioning to college basketball. The Wolverines beat the Michigan State Spartans 84-72 last Saturday at Chrysler Center. Pending Michigan's support of Michigan State in Ann Arbor, and I definitely love that because Michigan showed its support and respect for Michigan State after what happened last week at East Lansing's University, which as we recall, was very dramatic. Um, it kind of it's more it kind of makes this whole thing more important than just a rivalry now because this is something way more serious than just a rivalry. And Michigan was, and the University of Michigan entirely was willing to put its rivalry to the side because this is way more serious than personal, Ed. And and that, but that being said, the game was down to the wire. The Of course, it was very tight for most of the game until Michigan started to pull away in the waning minutes of regulation. They won 84-72. The Both teams stepped up as teams and as individuals. So Ed, analyze it as best you can.
Yeah, I think it goes without saying the moment that was displayed and shown at pregame before tip-off, which was done to honor everyone that had been affected by the shooting at Michigan State University at East Lansing on campus. Um, Very well done, all class. Um, it was quite a visual to say the least, to see, the Chrysler Center, the well-known haven of Michigan basketball, being bathed in green light. It showed that solidarity, I think, that you were trying to mention, that support as well, showing that, yes, despite all things that can happen, this is still, we're all within the same community. This is all within that same village, same family, so to speak. Um, Not just a Big Ten thing, but it's also, and it's not really a Big Ten thing that I'm speaking of from that perspective. It's more of connected, much more connected, intimate issue because what's your in-state? It's your in-state school, in-state rival, your in-state neighbor, but still, this was something that horribly affected them, their community, their students. So I think it was very important to show. I think and at least the humane thing to show that yeah, you don't have to be so uptight about some silly little game all the time. There are more important, more serious matters that sometimes take necessary cause. Um, and to see that before the game, very well to see. It took me back to, for an example, this was when after head coach Dean Smith died. There was a moment of silence held before a Duke versus North Carolina game, specifically in honor of him. So, see that being displayed and being shown to the victims of the shooting. Um, Again, all class to them. Now, as on to the game itself, I really liked what I saw out of Malik Hall. Good, very good size, very nice speed and athleticism. Shows great transition, especially on the offensive side of the ball, being able to get to the rim, whether it be for an alley oop lob or taking it in himself with a vicious slam. Kid's definitely got potential for sure. There was a lot of good you could say for Michigan State, but also I think you could say much more better for Michigan because aside from Hunter Dickinson being the team's best scorer and rebounder, there wasn't nothing else, much else for you to hang your hat on. Um, but I will say between Doug McDavid doing what he had to do, and also other players amongst the team making clutch threes, stepping up, making 3-point shots for once, taking that pressure off of Dickinson, especially Tarvis Reed, being the force and the presence that he was inside at the rim, in the paint, was very crucial by getting those second chance points and in offensive rebounds that kept things in control for Michigan to do what they had to do to pull away late. And for once, this was seen as an example of Michigan finishing a game. Because let's not forget the last two games before this against Indiana and against Wisconsin, both games that they had to win severely. for their bubble chances, they failed miserably down the stretch, whether it be not scoring a single point against Indiana, or you withhold Wisconsin to 0 points within the last 5, 6 minutes of the game, and yet you still lose in embarrassing fashion. So this was been a very challenging season to say the least for the Michigan basketball team, especially for their head coach Juwan Howard. So to get a win like this, it cools your nerves. It gives your bubble chances a little back, puts them back on life support just at least for a little bit. But you got to look at the reality of the situation, and the fact of the matter is, aside from having a deep run in the conference tournament, you're not going dancing this year unless you somehow pull off a great showing or do enough in the conference tournament to where either you get to the final of or you win the whole thing and boom, that's your automatic qualifier bid. You're gonna have to really show something good in the conference tournament to convince that committee that you want to be on that field of 68. Because between those two losses that I mentioned, other losses throughout this season, that's lost to Central Michigan was an absolute killer in terms of resume and whatnot. I know it's your chips, Taylor, but still, it was a real ball buster for Michigan's chances, and it's going to be something looked at as a reference.
I
Um,
remember.
yeah, as they look at their resume at the end of the season. So for Michigan, at this point, they have to
It just feels
win.
so odd.
I know, but for Michigan, for them, they have to win
Yeah,
the remaining games. You know, the last 2 or 3 games left on the schedule, and then essentially run the table in the conference tournament. But we'll see what
yeah.
happens. We'll see what we see. Can we see more from Kobe Buffkin? Can we see more for Tars Reed? Can we see more from other players? Other than Hunter Dickinson carrying the load. That's what we got to see here. Can we see more from Chet Howard? You know,
Yeah. The entire team has to step up.
yeah,
Seriously. Not just
especially
two or
yeah,
three players.
exactly. I mean, it's the 10-year anniversary of the 2013 team that went to the national title game, who happened to be in the building for the Michigan State game. So I think it is great importance that you remember that this Michigan basketball program has built a fine, nice, decent legacy in modern years and modern times, especially when there was a black cloud hanging over this program with the aftermath of the Fab Five and the scandal and all that. You don't want to go back and fall back to an area of regression of what it was in the late 90s and early 2000s before John Beeline got there. You don't want to do that. Now, granted, you're allowed a mulligan of a bad season every now and then, but you don't want this to become become a pattern if you're Michigan. That's the only thing that would concern me if I'm a Michigan fan here,
Yeah.
which I am.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's a pattern yet. I would
Mm,
not say it's a pattern yet. It's not.
no.
We're just being on the lookout for stuff like this. So, with that being said, that's all we've covered for this episode of the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast. I'm Taylor Phillips, along with Ed Smith. Follow the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast on Twitter and Instagram at Michigan_Truth. Like its Facebook page, subscribe to its YouTube channel, the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast, and listen in audio form on Spreaker. Business shoutouts go to Cali Tickets. Call 877-225-8425 or visit CaliTickets.com. Cadillac Nutrition. Download the Engage app to place an order for an iced or hot protein coffee, energy tea, or protein or post-workout shake. Creative Embroidery of Cadillac. United Food Service Solutions of Grand Ledge, Michigan. Creative Embroidery of Cadillac designs on my Michigan Sports Truth Podcast logo on my long sleeve shirt and t-shirt. The Edo Ramen House in Royal Oak, 248-556-5775, rated Detroit's best Japanese restaurant for consecutive years. Also EdoRamenHouse.com. Stop by to place an order. You'll love their sushi and Kamayan Feast, and the Red Ox Tavern in Auburn Hills. So, we'll try to be... So we apologize for any inconvenience to the South Florida Tribune network for not showing up. It was my fault. I gave up, but we'll try to be on next week. We'll try to come up with a different way. But for now, again, for Ed, I'm Taylor. We'll talk again next week. Ta-ta for now. Hit 'em with a hind. Power the people. Case closed.
Stay safe, everyone. Take good care of each other.